Hi Copic and the Craft Room fans, Michelle Houghton here. Just a little bit of news if you haven't seen it yet. There is a post on our Imagination International website that reads, and I'm going to read it to you so I get this exactly how it's worded. Over the past decade, we have been privileged to work with thousands of Copic enthusiasts in our live classes and workshops across North America. As we look to the future, we will be offering our final Copic certification classes and workshops in Phoenix this January. These classes will be awesome and we expect them to fill quickly, so we hope to see you there. So it's huge news, but our certification classes and our workshops for right now are going away. We have one last set available and those are happening January 17th through 20th. That's a Wednesday through Saturday. And basically you can take everything that we have been offering except for our old workshops. So on Wednesday, the standard certification plus the flowers workshop are available. On Thursday, the intermediate certification is available. On Friday, the animals coloring class and landscape coloring class will be available. And Saturday is hand lettering. And you're in for a special treat because we're going to have multiple instructors there that are going to tag team and teach an amazing class. Now, I will tell you that there is limited seats to any of our classes, and because these are the last available in the US for the foreseeable, and Canada for the foreseeable future, you might want to grab a chair. So I wanted to let you know that. Now, as for what you're used to, what's happening next, I can tell you for myself personally, I'm going to continue teaching Copic. I'm going to do my own local stuff, which I've been doing for a while now here in Des Moines, Iowa, but I'm also going to be doing two big events this year, Copic weekends, that I create myself, and I'm hopefully going to do two of them. So in different locations, I will keep you posted. And I know that Debbie and Cindy and Jen Dove, our newest team member, are going to be doing the same thing. Now, I'm going to continue running Copic in the craft room myself, so I will keep those videos coming, and I will let you know about any of our Copic girls classes that are coming up. But we wanted to let you know that we're still teaching. It's on our own now, and we are doing all of our Copic information and other fun creative endeavors. And I will keep you posted on Copic in the Craft Room, my personal blog, Facebook, YouTube, all of it. So keep in touch. And in the meantime, we had several requests for a few of those questions that I had answered from our 10,000 viewer post a few more of those. So I'm going to tag on a couple of those questions answered with me and my daughters to this video. And I hope you have a happy, colorful week. Thank you so much for all of your support.
Okay. What paper is best for a good blend? From Rashida Jean.
So, very similar to what we just talked about. The paper is going to be absolutely by personal choice. If you work with a softer paper, and that means it's got a little bit of tooth to it, it's got a looser weave, or the way it's bound together, the fibers are bound, are a little bit looser. And the way most of us can tell that is by the feel of the paper. We can feel just a touch of texture. It doesn't take much, but just a little bit. If it's super soft, it's going to bleed. The ink, when you set it down, will actually feather outward, but it's really easy to blend. So a lot of beginners like those softer papers, but they just have to be cautious because things tend to move as they put ink down. If you use a harder paper, it's really tight, and so that the touch, it's super silky smooth. It's going to sit tight, meaning the ink is going to sit right where you put it, but it does make it harder to blend the ink together. So if you're looking for easier blending, you want a paper that's got a little bit softer tooth to it, or softer where the fibers aren't bound as tightly together. Nina is a great cardstock for that, for beginners. The Express It blending card is actually tighter and would be much harder to blend on, but as you're getting more advanced and adding more ink, it tends to be one that people like a lot, as well as the paper that's in the new Copic sketchbooks.
What are all the various surfaces that Copic markers may be used on? Thea.
Basically, the answer is anything you want them to color on. Most of us in the crafting community are using a cardstock, a thicker cardstock. So those kinds of papers. The TWO Corporation will tell you not to use it on super absorbent papers like watercolor paper or other things that are super absorbent that are made for water-based projects. We have used them on everything, including those papers. We've used them on cloth, on wood, on metals, on plastics. It works on all of it. The issue is working over other mediums. So if you decide you want to do a mixed media project and you want to do it on top of other mediums, that's where you run into trouble. So you're trying not to do color on top of things like acrylic paint, on top of gesso, on top of oil pastels, on top of chalk pastels. If you want to do that mixed media, you're going to do your Copic marker work first and then come back with your other things. In fact, doing things like color pencil and chalk or oil pastels on top of your Copic markers is really stunning. It's beautiful. I've done a little bit of experimenting of playing around with that. There's a lot of rules, but surface-wise, if you're talking papers and metals and plastics, pretty much they're going to go about anywhere you want them to go.
What is the best way to store your Copic markers? From Sherry.
Sherry, you get to store them however you want. And that's one of the fun things with Copic markers. There are some Copic made products out there you can store them in, but these markers can be stored vertically. They can be stored horizontally. They're pretty impervious to heat and cold. So you really get to pick your storage method. Some people really like to have something like the Copic wallets that have those individual pockets, or a box that they've designed with individual holes in it, and so they keep them all lined up in color order, and that way they know exactly how to find them. Some people have designed things that they can carry with them and then also set up on their tabletops. And I've gotten to the point where a lot of mine are sitting right here on my the area that I'm going to work on for filming. They're truly just in buckets in color families together, and so I don't mind them being all grouped together. But there's a ton, if you, in particular, like if you're on Pinterest, you can Google that, Copic storage, and people have some amazing, fun ideas about how to do that. Are you done with your questions? Okay, we got one more over here. Nope, we're good over here. I have a couple more. Bridget asked, again, some detailed questions about coloring. She has seen a whole variety of things and wants to know if there's a right or wrong. So circles or strokes lifting at the end, we call those flicks, at least from our teaching standpoint. So you've seen probably both people coloring in circles and telling you that's the only way to do it. And then you've also seen people doing those little flicks. It's a stroke that set the marker down and kind of lift up as you flick it outward. I use both. And again, this is going to be a point where I tell you this is about practice and finding what works best for you. So I a lot of times will base something in a circular stroke, and the reason I do that is going to hit those areas 2 to 4 times and get that nice even saturation. And then as I'm laying ink down to do the shading, I would use a flicking stroke. So I use less ink and I'm flicking that on there so it automatically gets lighter as I lift up that marker, and it's blending into the lighter color. So I use a little bit of both. Light to dark or dark to light. Again, I'm going to tell you I use both. Most of the time, and from a Copic standpoint, from our certification classes, we always teach light to dark. For beginners, it tends to work better. And so we always teach it that way. Does that mean it's the only way? Absolutely not. In our intermediate class, we also do a section where we do some dark to light coloring, in particular for reds, in order to lay down less ink, and it works extremely well. And I know a lot of colorists out there, Copic artists, that's all they do. They work dark to light because they hit those shadows first and work into their highlight, and it stays very, very light that way. If you enjoy working that way, more power to you, and I hope it's really where you're more successful. And when we try that in the intermediate certification classes, I see about half of the group like one way and half of the group like the other. It really is very personal dependent. Shadows first or last. that really is the same question, or a similar question. A lot of times when I'm adding my deepest, darkest shadows, I'm adding it with a completely different color family. And if I'm doing that, I actually add it at the very end. So I color, I blend my entire area that I'm working on, and then I add my shadows. And I'm assuming you're maybe meaning cast shadows or the deepest shadows, meaning the darkest area on the image. And either one of those, I might come in and add that on skin tones with a blue violet or a violet to add that complementary color and that really dark tone. But I add it on top at the very end, and I don't do any blending to blend it back in. But you could do the same effect underneath your colors if you wanted to lay those down first. My issue with that for me personally is that it would blend in, and sometimes you're going to lose that power or that punch. So that's why I would add it at the end.